What was your "why are you booing me, I'm right" moment? I was working on a team of people building a race car. I told them a part that was technically strong enough should be built heavier to handle shock loads from bad track conditions. I got told I was a moron and it would be fine. Someone else ran the numbers and it would be fine. So I built the parts, put them on the car, and lo and behold it broke and the car ended up on its roof. You'd think that would be validation of my opinion, and people would agree that I was right. Not how it happened. I was the a-hole because I built them, so it was my fault. This made me angry. People who can't accept blame for their bad calls is infuriating. Me saying that Germany has a coastline, and everyone in class, including my teacher, disagreeing. Still remember it over 12 years later. I had basically the same thing happen when everyone else in my class insisted that Africa wasn't attached to any other land and was actually a giant island. My response was, then why did they need to build the Suez Canal? That seemed to stump them. In 2nd grade I joined the Robotics Club. One day we were learning about how an animal's bones affect the way animals move, and the teacher asked to give me examples about animals with spines. I said snakes. She said snakes are like worms and lack spines. The whole thing is a spine. It's a spine with a head. I've had many boot moments, but this is a more recent one. In my science class we were watching a few documentaries about the US space program, and the topic of pollution came up with fuel consumption, and in the midst someone asked about where the parts of the rocket go once they are abandoned by the spacecraft. I commented how it just falls and NASA pretty much just hoped that it didn't fall on people. One of the reasons they launch out of Florida or a Cape is so the parts end up in the water and not hitting civilization. But nobody believed me, since it would be then that NASA is polluting the ocean. Absolutely true. And part of why what SpaceX has been doing with reusable self-landing rockets is so important and exciting. Lot cheaper to go into space if you're not throwing away a very expensive part after one use. In kindergarten I drew a picture of grapes and colored them green, and the other kids and the teacher caretaker were saying there are no green grapes, only purple. Bring green grapes for a snack. Eat them outside snack time. Argue that you can't get in trouble for snacking outside snack time because green grapes don't exist. Win kindergarten. When I was in 1st grade, I said that electricity can be gained via water, hydropower. Everyone started laughing at me until my teacher said, "He is right." The whole class went silent. Grade 7, Canada. We were learning about medieval Japan and social studies class. Basically history class. I made a comment that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. A kid said it was the Germans and some people backed him up. Teacher said she forgot who bombed Pearl Harbor, but it wasn't the Japanese. If only smartphones existed back then. I forgot Pluto on my list of planets in 3rd grade. Got a B+ instead of an A. Should have gotten extra credit. Who's laughing now? Mothers? A teacher in biology GCSE was discussing a food pyramid of a river habitat, and she claimed that 10 spray were at the top of the food chain. I pointed out, "Miss, I think that says 1 osprey." She snarled and said, "Fine, everyone. Annan thinks he knows better than me, so now it's 1 spray." The whole class groaned and were muttering as they had to cross out what they'd written and rewrite it, and people on my table were giving me evils and telling me to be quiet. Utterly ridiculous that I even passed that subject. Was working for a political organization during an election year. Got a file from another office and they wanted me to run my standard scripts to get them a final direct mail address file. Asked the other office if they wanted me to correct any of the addresses and they told me to absolutely not change any of their data because it was good. Told them that I really felt like their data needed to be checked and was told by their office, their management and my management that I should just do as I'm told. In the end, apartment building offices throughout the state received several hundreds of pieces of direct mail from the org. I knew their file didn't have apartment numbers listed for anybody, but I wasn't allowed to change it. I got downvoted like crazy for saying that a nurse told me that cold water and soap kills germs just as well as hot water when washing your hands. Linked some sources and everything. Then people started calling me a troll. 8th grade, science class. Teacher was trying to be tricky or something. Dirt, I guess. Gave us a word problem that was something like, if you dig a hole 3x3x4 in the ground, how much dirt is in the hole? I raised my hand and said nothing. There was no dirt in the hole. Her specific question was how much was in the hole, not how big the hole was or what was left. I gave the right answer. There was no dirt in the hole. She told me I was wrong. I pondered her answer, decided it didn't make sense, then raised my hand again. I was a studious nerd back then. I actually wanted to impress the teacher. I gave the same answer and my reasoning. She said how much dirt? No, she told me I was wrong and stopped putting my hand up. The answer? Air. There was air in the hole. Air. I'm still pissed. It's 30 years later but I've still not forgiven her for embarrassing me and being wrong. Me, in science class at middle school, saying that water expands when it's heated up, and everyone including my science teacher saying I was wrong and that water only expands when it freezes and becomes ice. Water has its maximum density at 4 degrees. It expands both cooling and heating from that point. My class didn't believe me, teacher included, but he admitted later that he was wrong. When I said that a third, 1/3 of the English language come from Normandic French. Another time when I said that the wireless communication protocol's name, Bluetooth, come from a king of Denmark that was called Bluetooth. An old co-worker tried telling me that all rectangles are squares, but not all squares are rectangles. I then tried explaining that it was the opposite and proceeded to get called stupid by the rest of the staff for about 20 minutes. I really hope your job didn't need to use geometry. My daughter had a teacher in 3rd grade that told her that Swedish pancakes were really just crepes. She had no idea what to do since her teacher told her something that she eats all the time wasn't what her parents told her it was. Her next project about a week later was about other cultures, so I had her do a report on Sweden. Guess what was included in that report and guess what she brought to class to share with everyone during her report out to class. Teacher said nothing but did give her an A. When my grandmother fell over last month, she was told at her age having her hip broken this bad would require surgery. We were all in the room. My mother said she can't have surgery. She'll die. I instantly say better off early than stretching it out. Grandma laughed. Nobody else did. Sounds like you and grandma got a sense of humor. My family has a similar sense. We are pretty morbid. Not myself, but my brother had a high point question on a test in 8th grade about the eventual fate of our sun. A question that he happened to know the correct answer to because he had been watching the cosmos with my dad and they had explicitly talked about the sun's life and death during the episode, writing in detail about how it will swell up to a red giant, likely gobble up the earth, eventually shrink down to a white dwarf. He confidently wrote down the answer and his teacher marked it wrong, and the question was worth enough points it knocked him down a letter grade. Why? Well, when he went to talk to her, wanting to find out why he got it wrong and possibly see if he could at least get some points, it was because the science book, of all things, had the information all wrong and she graded completely off the science book. Even after arguing with her, she wouldn't hear it. The grade was the grade. For some reason the science book in question outlined a situation that didn't make any sense with our, as of 2012, information. I'm not sure if it was just because the science book was out of date, or it was just filled with wrong information. But the second my brother realized it was in the book, it absolutely incensed him. I wish I could tell you exactly what it got wrong, but it's been 7 years at this point, so the memory of him retelling me is fuzzy. I want to say it skipped the red giant phase of the sun, but it's been years. Anyone who gets knocked down a whole letter grade for a right answer would be pissed. There's a happy ending to this story though. They had an assignment where they had an essay of their choice, so long as it was pertaining to what they learned. Might have been extra credit. Again, details are fuzzy and petty a-hole my brother can be. He wrote his essay wholly on why he was right and the book was wrong, citing the astrophysicists in the cosmos and Stephen Hawking, among other renowned studies and scientists. After that, the teacher went and actually, finally reversed the grade. I have a similar but way more depressing story. Freshman biology lab. First practical exam. Part of the exam was measuring a line. Yes, taking a ruler and measuring a line. For illustration, we'll say the line was 4.75 centimeters long. I, and about 60% of the class, put 4.75 centimeters and we all got it wrong. The correct answer, according to the teacher and 40% of the class, was 5 centimeters. Well, you know how rulers tend to have a 0.25 cm gap from the edge before the markings start? The teacher, realistically probably some lab tech, and 40% of the class, measured from the edge of the ruler instead of the start of the markings where you are supposed to. I argued the shout of that, insistent that one way or another. Apparently half the class didn't know how to use a ruler and just maybe this answer should be confirmed. I had no happy ending though. He just told me he'd kick me out of class if I didn't let it go.